Finally, we got the exciting spoilers for another Yuji hype chapter. This will be lit, so I don't want to waste more of your time babbling about how fun reading this masterpiece is. Let's get straight into the discussion of chapter 258 and see if this is really a continuation of Yuji's Black Flash barrage. So, previously, we had Ino's much-awaited comeback as he faces off against Sukuna, this time using one of his auspicious beasts, the dragon, which is rumored to be the strongest among his summons. He also manages to acquire permission from Gojo and the others to use Nanami's cursed tool, which he has greatly utilized until Sukuna stops him with just one foot. Despite that, Ino successfully serves his role as he bonks the King of Curses in the face by throwing Nanami's weapon. The opening of that attack allowed Yuji, who was still in the zone, to hit his 8th consecutive Black Flash. There are no signs of Yuji stopping anytime soon, so we might see more of his 100% smashes later in the series. Also, I'm looking forward to seeing what more of Sukuna's abilities the awakened Yuji can use. So without further ado, let's dive into Jujutsu Kaisen, Chapter 258 spoilers. After all, Yuji might shine again in this chapter, or maybe not. We'll eventually reach that part, so tighten your seatbelt because Geigi's take on this chapter is absolutely unexpected. The chapter begins with the narrator explaining that after hitting 2 Black Flashes, Gojo constructed a special reverse curse technique circuit due to being in an awakened state. Sukuna was also supposed to regenerate all of his arms, but due to Yuji's 7 Black Flashes, he couldn't regain his reverse curse technique output. But I'll pause this part for a bit. So this reminds us of what was said back in chapter 255, when Sukuna hits LaRue with a 2nd Black Flash. We don't know what exactly happened at that time, but we have the answers right now, as it is evident that Sukuna has not fully recovered yet. Man, he's not even healing his wounds properly. On top of it, Yuji's Reign of Black Flashes last chapter certainly gives the King of Curses the trouble he deserves. Also, notice that the leaks specifically mentioned 7 Black Flashes, even though the translations from the last chapter say that Yuji scores 8 consecutive hits. Possibly, there might be a translation error this time since I count Yuji's Black Flash ever since the first strike back in chapter 256. Not to mention that the source is also confused as to why, in the world, it is 7 rather than 8. Nonetheless, I hope we get some corrections or explanations about this in the official translated chapter. Afterward, the narrator mentions that Yuji specifically hit Black Flashes right between Sukuna and Megumi's soul realms. Actually, this is not much of a surprise compared to other news, but I won't deny that this info is hype. After all, this means that Megumi can still hear Yuji like an alarm clock begging him to wake up. The last we saw Megumi was when he was devoid of strength to fight back, mainly due to her sister taking a permanent leave from the job called life. I have mentioned it in past reviews, but let me remind you that Yuji's punches can strike the gap between Sukuna and Megumi's souls. Oh, you think the consecutive Black Flashes do their job? In the next moment, Sukuna instantly uses domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. The narrator then notes, the king's domain had returned to its master along with the black sparks. Whoa, Uncle Sukuna is not over yet, despite acting so grumpy in the previous episode. And if you haven't noticed this small detail about the black sparks, I'll gladly put some interesting info here. In chapter 256, the editor notes, even the rays of hope shine black, which symbolizes Yuji's awakening. Now we have this new note from the narrator, which on the other hand signals Sukuna's comeback. And now that the King of Curses can activate his domain expansion again, in spite of Yuji's soul-smashing punches, I'm sure the whole squad will encounter another set of trouble. As if proving that statement true, everything surrounding Sukuna starts to get slashed. Narrator says that despite including uncertain elements and binding vows, Sukuna replicated Malevolent Shrine without dropping its effective range or output after experiencing the Black Flash. The next panels then transition into a short flashback somewhere in the time skip before the showdown. Hakari says it's important to learn to reverse curse techniques and countermeasures to the domain for this fight. Choso says if it's about reverse curse technique, he and Yuji can manage somehow. However, Yuji wonders how in the world they can, especially him, accomplish it. Choso asks the reverse curse technique users in the room how they compensate for the blood when they regenerate their bodies. Hakari and Yuta couldn't answer, but Shoko says she converts cursed energy into blood. Eventually, Hakari says that his reverse curse technique is automatic, while Yuta, on the other hand, adds that he just goes by instinct. Choso says his body allows him to convert his cursed energy into blood, so if Yuji consumes his remaining brothers, he can gain their cursed technique with the same properties as Choso, making him able to convert his cursed energy into blood. Luckily for Yuji, this must be why Choso mentioned seconds ago that he and his little brother will have no problem learning reverse curse techniques to counter Sukuna's domain somehow. This also reveals the method as to how Yuji learned the reverse curse technique in such a short span of time. Moreover, their conversation tells us more about the death paintings, adding evidence to the confirmed fact that Yuji really consumed some of the cursed wombs. Also, the convert curse technique into blood method is the same as Shoko. I thought I just needed to point that out since the characters mentioned have their own ways of compensating for the aforementioned problem. Choso also says that the downside of using the reversed curse technique, which is a large amount of cursed energy consumption, is also not a concern for them, to him and Yuji, due to their special body. Yeah, we already got it. You brothers are built differently. So, Choso asks Yuji to be paired with someone who can use the reverse curse technique when they do the body swapping training. Yuji is confused, and Wee reveals that with the help of his curse technique, he can even swap the souls between the human beings. Remember, Yuta mentioned something related to this back in chapter 250 when Sukuna asks, "Just what have you all been up to this past month?" Yuji answers, "Hard work and determination," as expected of him. But Yuta is so kind to correct that statement because they actually cheated, meaning that this body-swapping training must be the cheat that Yuta refers to at that time. Kusakabe says that since Sukuna took over Yuji's body and used his curse technique, Yuji's body now remembers Jujutsu of a special grade, so they plan to do the same with soul swap training. Kusakabe will first swap with Yuji's soul and teach basic cursed energy manipulation and simple domain to Yuji's body. Wee asks them to think wisely when making the pairs for soul swap training because, with the limit of 1 month, he can only swap twice in this duration. At this point, it is given that Kusakabe is one of the 2 sorcerers who swapped his soul with Yuji at a certain time frame. Therefore, it is highly plausible that Yuji will use an ability or 2, which he basically copied from Kusakabe. And now that we are talking about this topic, Yuji uses new shadow style simple domain against Sukuna's domain. Man, Yuji just demonstrated a new skill for us to add to his arsenal. Obviously, they prepared Yuji the most in the fight against Sukuna, mainly because they sensed that our boy could deal significant damage to the King of Curses himself, with whom he shared a body once. With this new shadow-style simple domain, Yuji can now withstand the slashes brought by Sukuna's malevolent shrine. Honestly, this chapter is pure chaos. Yuji notices that Sukuna's domain is incomplete, and there's some loophole so he can endure it. Okay, so Yuji's uncle is still weakened somehow, which is fortunate for Yuji. This way, he could be able to withstand even the malevolent shrine that Sukuna is currently using. We'll get into more details about this nerf here later, since the leaks have revealed something regarding Sukuna's domain. No, actually it's here. The narrator reveals that Sukuna can't maintain this high-level domain for a long time and cannot capture Maki, who has no cursed energy within his domain. On top of it, Sukuna's malevolent shrine will collapse after 99 seconds. This is great because, unlike in the past, the team is making sure that Sukuna won't be able to activate his domain. Actually, even Miguel fears it, as he doesn't want to deal with the King of Curses in his complete form. However, Sukuna's ongoing malevolent shrine is luckily in its incomplete state, and the King of Curses can't wreak havoc with this ability like he used to in the old chapters. Yuji, Maki, Ino, and Chozo try to endure the rampage. Even if he is getting destroyed, Chozo is still concerned about his little bro as he shouts, "Yuji!" Unfortunately, the big bro's concern is spot on because tragedy happens in the following events. Yuji's simple domain barrier cracks as it couldn't withstand Sukuna's domain slashes. Yuji gets slashed and he loses his left foot. Even so, Yuji is still unfazed. He notices that the slashes stopped and thinks they endured the onslaught. But Sukuna immediately brings out flames. It's official, guys. Sukuna is literally cooking in this chapter. There is a break next week due to Golden Week in Japan, a series of 4 holidays closely spaced together. I won't go into more detail about that because a break is a break, and we have to wait a little longer to see Sukuna's reawakening, as I call it. Lastly, here's the editor's comment at the end of Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 258, which says, "Flames of certain death closes in." Yuji's glory is put to a temporary end here, which is not what the majority of the JJK community expected. After all, Yuji was in the zone for more black flashes in the last chapter. Nonetheless, I am curious about the editor's comment on the final page. Do the words hint that someone or somebody will meet their permanent life departure in the next chapters? Let me know what you think in the comments section. We already know what kind of writer Gege is, and that development is regrettably possible. Still, we will learn more about it as the story goes on. This is all for the spoiler review for now. If you like it, don't forget to hit the like button. If you're into chapter reviews, subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing a review for chapter 258 when it's out. Thank you for watching the video, and see you on the next one.